Hello, everyone. My name is Ludmila Kozlovska. I'm president of the Open Dialogue Foundation, and I'm also a human rights defender and Bitcoin advocate, together with Boda Jardimali, human rights defender and lawyer from Kazakhstan, who is also, like me, were deprived right to have financial services, and we use Bitcoin for human rights, for humanitarian aid. We educate regulators. We're doing the kind of meetings like this one to show what actually Bitcoin mining do to both of us as activists, local communities, for environment, and how it should be or shouldn't be regulated, how it's proposed, for example, in the European Union. And we have with us Bitcoin miner, Jason. Jason, hello.
Hello, thanks for asking me to join.
Tell us, please, where are you from, where are you based, how you decided actually to start your Bitcoin mining business and why?
Sure. So I am originally from Marietta, Georgia, in the United States, but I've been living in New York City since 2003. I own some large-scale spa facilities, both in Brooklyn and Manhattan, called Bathhouse. So, we have a big business. We have hundreds and hundreds of employees and hundreds of thousands of customers. We provide pools, saunas, steam room, there's restaurant facilities, massage therapy, and esthetician services like scrubs. So it's like a big traditional bathhouse. So we have a lot of pools and other facilities that people pay admission to enjoy for the day. I've been aware of Bitcoin for a long time. I've been following it probably since 2012. I got in the beginning of the pandemic, when I realized that we were going to close the economy, I became very concerned about inflation. To me, it was obvious that if people didn't have jobs, the governments were going to have to subsidize them, and that might have an inflationary impulse. There wasn't really, it just seemed like that was going to naturally follow. And then that's what happened. So during that time, I both for myself to preserve some of my purchasing power and not suffer too much inflation, but also for I have a lot of really young employees, people with young families, hourly workers. I have hundreds and hundreds of hourly workers who work for me. A lot of them have kids. Inflation is very devastating for them. So looking for solutions to that, knowing that that was very obviously, very likely going to be an outcome of the lockdowns, I looked at Bitcoin much more seriously than I had in the past. And I really started to understand Bitcoin once started to understand mining. Mining is what makes Bitcoin different than all other currencies, blockchains, whatever. And It's what makes it an actual, in my opinion, a real and valuable asset. It's what makes it secure for people to be able to trust that that they will actually be able to protect their purchasing power. And so understanding mining was a big revelation in my sort of Bitcoin journey. I came in just trying to preserve purchasing power and to help my employees preserve purchasing power. And then on that educational journey, um, I started getting interested in mining myself, and learning about what's happening with mining is that they're using electricity to run computers that support the Bitcoin network and keep the Bitcoin network honest and keep it from being vulnerable from attacks. And the more miners, the better. But because they're computers, they're converting their electricity largely into heat. Heat is a waste byproduct. Just if you remember, high school physics, there's the law of conservation of energy, which is that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change forms. So I knew that if you have a computer plugged in, and it has an electrical input, it's drawing electrical power, then all 100% of that energy is changing forms into heat. Not some of it, not a little bit, all of it, all of
Wow.
it.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's just a law of physics. So typical miners, they actually struggle getting rid of the heat, but we need heat. What do? I make hot pools. I make
Mhm.
hot hammams, marble hammams. I make hot saunas, and I buy energy to do that already. I have to buy energy.
Mhm.
Actually, if you live in a building and you're a person, you also have to buy energy. We all actually have to buy energy, and we have to buy energy usually at any price from a monopoly. Where I am in New York City, there's one energy supplier, Con Edison, and they set the price, and that is what it is. So I have to buy energy, and I had to buy it from one person or one company, and I'm gonna buy it no matter what. Otherwise, like I can't open my business. We can't have a bathhouse without energy. You can't have an apartment
Mhm.
building without energy. You can't have a hotel without energy. You can't have an infrastructure without energy. You can't have a retail store without energy. You can't have a school without energy. You can't have anything without energy. You are everybody must buy energy, and maybe in different markets there's more competition, but in my market there's none. So
Mhm.
knowing that I need to buy energy specifically to heat pools and hammams and saunas and stuff like that. I started studying quite seriously. Could I use the heat waste from mining very efficiently and become energy neutral, meaning that I'm using the same amount of energy now that I was before I started mining.
Mm. Mhm.
There's no purpose. I would never in New York City, you would never mine unless you were in my situation because it's so expensive.
Yeah, this is actually, if I may interrupt you, because the biggest worry of all regulators that miners will basically, use all energy. They basically will overuse energy system and make it vulnerable with Bitcoin mining. And this is kind of also a threat to energy security. And that's why they want to introduce more and more regulation, especially labeling Bitcoin mining with like, if it's safe for environment, if it's safe for energy security or not. So how you being business person minor in such big city like New York in US actually solving this problem? Can you just be more specific?
Well, I
So
mean,
in his
no,
language, so everyone
I
understands.
understand what you're saying. I would disagree that that's a real fear. It's not a legitimate fear because, well, you would have to ignore the idea that there's energy markets and there's supply and demand. So if you want to pretend that supply and demand does not exist and there's no energy markets and the Bitcoin miners can just come and suck it all up at any price, then we could, people could take that position, but it's not based on reality. The
Mhm.
reality is, if there's a scarcity of energy, the cost will go really high and the miners will turn off immediately because
Mhm.
if there's an abundance of energy, the cost of energy will be low.
Mhm.
This is middle school
Yeah.
economics. And then miners might turn on in that jurisdiction, that area, to use which the reason that price would be low in the first place is because they had surplus energy.
Mhm.
That's the
Yeah.
only reason it'd be low. It's not low because somebody just loves getting miners free energy. The reason that so it would be good for the stability of a utility grid or of an energy producer. It would be good to have those customers to make them more stable. So if energy is very cheap somewhere, Bitcoin miners help stabilize the market.
Mhm.
If energy is scarce and becomes very expensive, Bitcoin miners are not going to be there.
Mhm.
So from my perspective, I understand that where that rhetoric comes from sometimes, but I think that you have to suspend knowledge of middle school economics to believe that's a legitimate concern. Because if energy is really expensive in Europe, nobody's mining there. And
It's
I think
true.
Yeah.
and miners are okay with that. Miners
Yeah.
were going to go where it's inexpensive. However, there's still people in Europe who need to heat their buildings.
Mhm.
Now, what I'm doing, I had big electric pool heaters.
Mhm.
The pool water was cycling through it and it was plugged into electricity and it converted electricity into heat and it heated the pools. I took those out. I threw them in the garbage. I bought the same amount of mining capacity in terms of watts. So my pool heaters were
Mhm.
30,000 watts. I bought 30,000 watts worth of mining equipment. I convert the heat into I run the miners, I capture all of the heat, and I convert it and I run it through a heat exchanger, heat the pools instead. My power bill did not move. I'm actually slightly more efficient.
Mhm.
The reason, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but so it just to kind of highlight, you would have bought this exactly the same amount of energy to heat your facilities as you buy now when you plugged in between Bitcoin mining, between your facility and electrical grid, right?
100%. So
Uh-huh.
if you have two identical, if you're going to require the same amount of watts or joules, however you want to think
Mm-hmm.
about it, to heat a body of water from this temperature to this temperature and keep it there, no matter what source of heat you're using. So I'm 100% energy neutral, actually a little bit more energy efficient than I was before. And that's because of the specific equipment I was using. You know, these particular pool heaters, they're only on or off. They don't have variance. So they're just using a ton of energy and going off. And it's very inefficient. The miners run steady. They keep a steady temperature in the mining tanks. They're mining, and actually I use less energy now, slightly less energy. We have I care about having I only mine enough to accomplish what I want to accomplish. We don't overmine. And I have an energy recovery. I have an energy recovery system in my building that's very sophisticated that we built. So what happens is that we have cold water coming in from a chiller tower. Okay. And all my air conditioners get cold water in to cool them, and they get hot water out. All my dehumidifiers get cold water in, hot water out, and all of that's going into a loop. Okay, it's getting cold water and it's rejecting hot water out. This is how all air conditioners work. Then that takes it from 80 degrees, the water in the loop, to 105. I need to be 110. Instead of using an electric pool heater to make that delta, I use the miners to boost it to 110 degrees. The pools get heated, right? So the pools are using heat exchangers to take the energy out of that loop, and then the loop returns cold and cools the air conditioners again. And we have no loss. We have very small amount of loss. So we're the most energy efficient. We're way more energy efficient than the typical building. And we're using the same amount of energy we would be using no matter what. Those pools are going to require that amount of energy.
So can we say that Bitcoin miners care about environment actually even more because you try to be more sophisticated and using energy more efficient than just normal business people?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I do. I can't speak for everybody, but I can
Of
speak for
course.
myself. I'm running a business and I want to be efficient. And I want to save energy because I also don't want to pay for it.
Yeah,
But
that's the part very interesting for you as a consumer of like quite expensive energy and that you would have bought anyway. This mining allows you kind of to set off some of your costs, right?
100%. So
100%.
no. It does not set off, it does not recover 100% of my energy costs. I definitely make more mining proceeds than it cost me to heat the pools for sure. So it's kind of like I get a rebate on my energy use. And I'm supporting the Bitcoin network, which is important to me philosophically, right? I'm a small scale miner. I have like 15 miners here where I'm at now. So they're the ones in Manhattan. I have 6 pools, 2 are cold, 4 are hot. I'm heating 4 fairly large pools with 14 small miners that are doing like 2,400 terahash. Not a lot. Not a lot. I make domestic hot water with it. So I have indirect hot water heaters that heat up hot water for showers and stuff. So, any really, we all should be doing this. If you have a building that requires heat and hot water, it's very easy to do it with Bitcoin mining. and there's no natural gas, there's no carbon emissions coming out of our building.
Mhm.
Our supplier, it depends on who your utility company is. But so it's very easy to capture all the heat and reuse it. It's not complicated, it's not expensive. I see a future where mining gets integrated into residential buildings, hotels, large office buildings, schools, especially in northern climates, in colder climates, they all have heat. There's no way they're not going to have heat unless you're talking about ending civilization. We're going to have heat. We're going to have hot water, and that is going to require. If you have a 1 million square foot school building, it's going to require the same amount of watts to heat it, whether you get those watts from natural gas, from electric heaters. You're using natural gas to create heat. You're using whatever. So there's a total energy load that's required. And so there's not really a honest argument to say, well, it's bad. Because what you really be saying is energy is bad. If you want to make the argument that energy is bad, okay, let's have that discussion. But to say that Bitcoin mining is bad because it uses energy, but energy is not bad, is a circular logic. For example, the New York Times wrote a big hit piece about Bitcoin mining. Do you know what the carbon footprint of the New York Times servers are? They have their own data center. They have their own data center, and they have why would Instagram be a moral use of energy to run their massive GPU cluster data centers, and Bitcoin not be? Who should decide that Instagram is moral and the New York Times server use is moral, and the Bitcoin's computers are not moral?
We can tell you who decides, at least in the EU.
It's going to be European Central Bank who is actually deciding what crypto asset service providers should be invested, supported, or not.
So European Commission, European Central Bank, institutions like that.
It's framed as a moral issue, but maybe it's a self-interested. There might be some self-interest there.
Yeah. Another question. This argument, has been thrown at us for quite some time. Mining uses a lot of water. There is waste of water associated with mining, with each mining transaction. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? How much water you waste? That's the question.
Especially New York.
That's what we have to address when we meet with the politicians usually. Because they read it somewhere, they heard it from somewhere. Yeah.
I don't know what they're talking about. I waste zero water. So I have two different technical setups. In Brooklyn, I do what's called immersion mining. The regular Bitcoin, they're called ASICs, which is application specific integrated circuit. They're a computer that just does one thing, and they call it an ASIC. They come to you air cooled. They're typically sold air cooled. I pull the fans off of them and I submerge them in big tanks that have dielectric fluid in them. Dielectric fluid is basically an engineered mineral oil, okay? So, and then I plug them in because the mineral oil does not conduct any electricity. So they're running full power in this tank, okay? And all of the heat is going into the oil. That's how I capture it. That oil never leaves the tank. There's no water being used. There's a pump on the tank and a heat exchanger on the tank. The pump is pumping hot oil off the top, going through the heat exchanger. The cold oil that was exchanged then goes back into the bottom, which goes through the miners. It's going in a circle. It never leaves. It never gets dumped down the drain. Nothing like that happens. And then on the other side, I have a water loop connected to that same heat exchanger. So it's got oil in, oil out on one side, water in, water out on the other side. So it goes hot oil in, cold water in, hot oil out, cold oil out, hot water out. The hot water then runs to all my devices that borrows its energy, goes to this pool, goes to that pool, and then it returns cold the same water. The same water runs in a loop. It is not, it's a piping loop that has no way out and just goes around and around and around in circles forever. That's one. The other one is in here in Manhattan. I'm in Manhattan right now. We use I use a new miner that came out. They're also ASICs, but they're called hydros. Instead of being air cooled, they actually come designed to be water cooled. So they have a hose of cold water in. The water is running through aluminum channels that are next to the chips, but the water can't touch the chips, and it comes out hot. They basically are a hot water heater. They're a little tiny hot water heater. So I have a whole bank of them, and that water comes. I get cold water returning from so the pools have already used all the energy up, and so the water that's returning to the Bitcoin miners is cold because they delivered that energy somewhere else. Then it flows through and gets heated up, goes back to other devices like pools or hammams, delivers more energy, keep them constant. They take the energy out of that water and put it into the pool, and it returns cold. It goes in a loop. It's an energy recovery loop. You would not be dumping water. That would be I can't imagine why anybody would engineering system where you would do that. There's no benefit. It's just a huge cost. So I mean, I don't know who's doing that. It doesn't make sense.
Do you know other businesses like yours that use Bitcoin mining
For heating, for example, or something?
For heating and for other reasons when they would buy energy anyway and they just plug in their mining facilities in between?
Not really. I don't know why, but I think everybody should be doing this.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, would you be open to teach or show your use case for regulators and politicians? Because they quite often in New York for UN session or some other meetings, and we can use this momentum, for example, saying, hi, Jason, actually, we have a mission from this and these countries. Would you like just to show them that how it's operate, just to touch, to feel, just like...
Yeah, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm willing.
Because a lot of politicians, they don't understand how Bitcoin mining looks, right? We even had a question once, like, show me Bitcoin. So that's but these people make decisions, right?
Sure.
So they are going to vote and adopt the regulations prepared by the European Commission. So we have to do anything that we can to educate them. So if you can have them on your side, that would be fantastic.
I'm happy to help anytime.
Okay. And then another question is it's about the regulatory regime. So you are there. Do you have any issues with the local authorities? How local authorities treating you? And if you can discuss it in both, like kind of Manhattan level, state level, and federal level, if it's possible.
Yes.
Well, the short answer is no. I haven't had any. We haven't had any interactions with the local government regarding Bitcoin mining. We are a big open to the public facility. We're fully regulated in terms of the health department. That we have the fire department, Department of Buildings. We do with the state liquor authority. We have a lot of interactions with different regulatory arms, and we like to be very, very compliant. We have to do everything the right way. We run our facilities really perfect. But there's not really any regulation at this time that impacts Bitcoin mining. There has been at the state level a lot of kind of noise the state level, but the only thing that's actually passed was a 2-year moratorium on miners that were buying closed down energy producing facilities. So people were, there were some miners that were buying closed power plants, and they were renovating them, recommissioning them, and turning them on, and then selling some power and using power to mine Bitcoin. Which is great because now we have more power plants in New York State, but for some reason, the government banned it for 2 years. It was a 2-year ban to maybe investigate it a little bit more and try to understand what was happening. But we should not be energy scarce in New York.
Mhm.
We have a ton of hydro, we have nuclear, we have a ton of natural gas.
Mhm.
The idea that energy is not very, very cheap here is it's because the market is if energy producers were allowed to produce energy and just sell it and compete in the free market, we would have very cheap energy here.
Mhm.
So I think there's perhaps there's some regulations that need to be examined, or other things. But as it stands today, it's very expensive. I pay 20 cents a kilowatt plus delivery, so I almost pay like
Mhm.
26 cents a kilowatt, which is very, very expensive. In
Yeah.
Nashville, you said you go to Nashville, it's 3 cents a kilowatt.
Right. Would you do mining if you didn't have this facility? Would it be economical for you to do mining if
I
you
don't
didn't
think
have your swimming pools and your business? Yeah.
I don't think
In New York City. Yeah.
no, I would not.
Mhm.
It's economic. It's not economical in New York City. It's
Yes.
only
Mhm.
economical if you need the heat. It's only
Mhm.
economical if you need to buy energy anyway.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I'm buying the same amount of energy.
Mhm.
So I was gonna buy that no matter what. Let's just say my energy bill
Mhm.
is gonna be $20,000 a month. That's gonna
Mhm.
happen no matter what. So now I'm buying $20,000 of energy a month, but I'm also earning a few $1,000s in Bitcoin. So I'm
Mhm.
getting a rebate.
Mhm.
That's why I'm doing it. But I would not be instead of you know what my miners are? They're a fancy pool heater. That's all they
Mhm.
are. They're just a fancy pool heater.
Right.
They could be a fancy water boiler. They could
Mhm.
be a fancy radiant floor heater. But
Mhm.
I had to buy a pool heater no matter what. This is the key point.
Right.
The key point.
Mhm.
So I in New York City
Mhm.
most of New York State, unless you could buy your own power plant, I would not be Bitcoin mining. It would be not be
Mhm.
because I don't like losing money.
Mhm.
I'm not okay with that. So it would cost you more to mine here than you would earn over even a medium term time frame. You know,
Mhm.
so I think areas where there's surplus energy, and so therefore the market has brought energy prices down below normal, are
Mhm.
good places to mine. And there's a lot of places like that. There's a lot of places in America that used to be big manufacturing centers, for example, that
Mhm.
had big utility infrastructure, and then we saw manufacturing leave,
Mhm.
so they have surplus of energy, right?
Mhm.
Now those big energy producers are going to go out of business, or they're going to find a customer, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
So Bitcoin in a way, kind of a buyer of last resort for those big producers of energy in those
yeah, could be
distressed
a buyer,
areas, right?
right?
Mm-hmm.
But energy companies are companies like any other company. They need
Mm-hmm.
customers to be stable,
Mm-hmm.
and to make investments in their
Mm-hmm.
into their facilities, and to do all the things that any company has to do to have great talent work there. You want so if you're in an area that had a lot of industry leave, and so you have this massive power plant, but you're also so the factories used to supply energy to are gone, but there's still 10,000 people who live there who need power. What do?
Mm-hmm.
You close your energy
Yeah.
plant and tell those guys to find some power somewhere else, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is reality.
This is
This is
Mm-hmm.
interesting what you're
this is the
saying.
real reality. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of the miners went down, like where I'm from in Georgia, there's a miner called Clean Spark he went to a town where there's a where that exact thing happened. There used to be big manufacturing. They left to went to I don't know where they went, Mexico, China,
Mm-hmm.
and they're
Right.
struggling. They're still providing power for the residents, but they're struggling. Their utility was struggling, and so he got a long-term contract to get very affordable energy.
Mm-hmm.
And he stabilized the entire grid in that area.
We
Yeah.
need this guy.
So
Yeah.
it means just kind of a simple explanation. Sometimes we need to explain economy 101. So for that plant, in order to survive, they would have increased the prices for the local
Local communities.
population, right? In order to survive. And here, because of Bitcoin mining, they managed to keep prices at the same level and basically
lower.
kind of and even lower them. Okay.
Right, exactly.
Uh-huh.
Civilization,
Mhm.
this is where I listen,
Mhm.
civilization is energy. Civilization is made out of energy. Everything in the room you're sitting in was made with energy.
Yes.
It was extracted from the earth with energy. It was distributed with energy. It was manufactured into something else and reorganized materially with energy. It was brought to your end user with energy. Civilization are pools of energy. That's what civilizations are.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I like it.
So
Yeah, that's true. But, like here in Europe, at least, the regulator is very much concerned about global warming, about it, meeting the targets of under the Paris Accord. So it's it becomes more important than industries and sometimes quality of life of the population. And one thing that I would like to kind of explain, that we have to explain economics 101, because if when we read some of the documents, they say that we need a plan, we need a mechanism to stop mining at the moments when there is a peak prices and the shortage of energy. You would think that there will be no mining anyway, but they want to have a mechanism to stop mining at that
the mechanism
moment.
is called supply and demand.
It's called market, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's this great mechanism. It's called a
Right,
market.
right.
That is what a market is. It's a mechanism for price discovery. That's
Yeah.
literally what a market is. Exactly what you just said. So
Mhm.
if somebody is a decision maker at that level and they don't understand
Mhm.
market dynamics, I don't know what to say. It's like
Mhm.
okay, so we have to take a big step back and sort of agree on a shared reality. This is what sometimes I
Mhm.
feel like we're living in different realities, not me and you, but
Yeah.
the people who are like, oh yeah, Bitcoin, it's bad because it uses energy. Well, everything that you think is good uses energy too.
Mhm.
The pool that you're sitting in is using energy, or the apartment you're sitting in right now uses energy. So
They say that it's a wasted energy, right? That kind of this consensus
but
mechanism
that's
just
a see,
waste energy without producing any public good, right?
but
That's kind of the main line of attack. Yeah.
right, but that's
Mhm.
what I was saying earlier. That's a
Mhm.
moral argument. They're saying this use of energy is moral, and this use of energy. Who gets to decide what is a valuable use of energy?
We know these institutions.
But do you
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying? There, what anybody who says that is
Mhm.
also inherent in that statement is also the concept of I know what is moral, and
Mhm.
I am deciding that this use of energy is moral and this use
Mhm.
is immoral. And we can have that discussion in public, but that has not been litigated. That has not been no, because people are skirting around it. But nobody has come to
Mhm.
the table and said, you know what? Let's have the discussion. Are there moral and immoral uses of energy? Who could decide? By
I
what
can
standards?
give you their arguments, right? They're kind of oversimplifying it, that the Bitcoin mining is immoral because it's uses energy, and then it kind of produces Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin is used by money launderers, by criminals, and by terrorists.
Well,
So
so that's a
that's kind of
lie. That's just
right.
that's fake.
Have you
Well,
been ever accused in
let's put it this
that?
way. Let's put it this
Yeah.
way. You guys have probably heard of Bernie Madoff.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
Bernie Madoff stole billions of dollars from people. That's a fact, right?
Mhm.
That when he did that, did somebody say there was something wrong with the dollar? No, they did
No.
not. It said this guy committed fraud. Now, when Sam Bankman-Fried committed the exact same kind of fraud, what did they say? something's wrong with Bitcoin. None of these arguments stand up to even the most basic logical thing. If somebody uses a dollar to buy drugs,
Mhm.
it's not the fault of the dollar. If somebody uses Bitcoin to buy drugs, Bitcoin's used for drug smugglers and whatever. This is very silly, and this is not genuine. This is not a genuine argument. The dollar, the US dollar, for 100 years has been the biggest tool of money launderers, human traffickers, drug smugglers, fraudsters. And it's not because there's anything unique about the dollar. It's because it was the biggest and most liquid market it was the biggest and most liquid currency. So people who want to sell drugs or whatever illicit activity they're in, they are going to want the currency that is the biggest and most liquid.
And the least traceable. We should
How
remember
is a
that
briefcase, how's a
every
briefcase full
transaction.
of USD traceable?
No, it's not, but I'm saying that they use something
Oh,
that's
the
the least
Bitcoin
traceable. And Bitcoin, when you have transactions on a blockchain, that's, that would be a dumb crime to use it for, to sell, to buy drugs, etc.
Yeah, but if somebody, if somebody commits a lot of fraud and it happened to be denominated in dollars, people never attack dollars. They say dollars are scams. Have you ever heard somebody make that argument? Never. So why is it Bernie Madoff? He's the criminal, but then Sam Bankman-Fried, crypto's a scam. Okay, for sure. It's not a rational. It doesn't stand up to rational examination. That argument to me.
One last question, because we almost run out of time. So do your neighbors actually suffer from noise? Because sometimes what we also hear that Bitcoin mining machine produce noise. So how your neighbors react that you use Bitcoin mining machine to actually hit your pools?
My miners are completely silent. Yeah, so so I have the two kinds, the immersion ones. They have, all computers have little fans, and then the bigger the computer, the bigger fan you need. So if you ever go to a data center, it was like,
yes.
Bitcoin mining operations are basically data centers. But I do, like I was saying, I put mine in the liquid, right? So I've taken the fans off. The fans are what makes the noise. When you hear a Bitcoin miner, all you're hearing is a fan. The fan, it sounds like a bee or something. So I take the fans off and I put them into liquid, and they're being liquid cooled instead of air cooled. So they're totally silent. You would not, if you were standing next to it, you wouldn't even know that you were standing next to it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So we would definitely invite people to to visit your facility.
Yeah. They're in my IT closet. They look like weird computers.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's super, super useful. Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. And we will prepare a draft of your testimony and I will send it to you. So
nice to meet you. Thanks for doing all the hard work you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so
Put up
much.
a good fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
you.